So just, well, I guess we'll start because we don't want you to have a whole bunch of blank space.
We don't mind blank space.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. I'm so thrilled that you're here today. Um, I'm excited about this presentation because it helps me go back to the roots for me as a soul journeying here on planet Earth. My name is Kathleen Ellis. I'm a reverend in Peace Community Church International who's presenting this program today. When I first was introduced to the Peace Community Church energy, what attracted me was the energy of healing. I have a background as a physical therapist. I am a trained spiritual educator and consultant with Wayshowers College. And there was just such a sense of belonging that came with my involvement in Peace Community Church that went way beyond my previous religious training. And so I'm excited. This particular presentation was created by Dr. Francisco Cole. And I'll share more about that in a minute, but I want to introduce my co-presenter, Reverend Elise Wilson. Elise, will you share about yourself?
Hi, everyone. So glad you made it. I was just wondering is your name? Oh, Janet. Okay, great. So, welcome, Janet. You're a newbie here,
and I am. Thank you.
We love newbies. So, yeah, I'm a reverend. I've been ordained with the Peace Community Church for a number of years now, and it's just because I love the freedom. I love the freedom of being able to trust my own thoughts and feelings about things, and really go within for my own answers. That's what I really like about one of the most I like. And plus, I love sharing it with other people, and because it's so freeing. And so, welcome.
All right. So, Janet, I know you came to the free presentation the other day. And was there anything that stood out about that presentation 2 days later now?
I think the most important thing is to be open. You know, I come from a relatively conservative tradition. And so just to allow myself to be open and to experience and learn different ways of connecting with spirit.
Right. And then, Anne, why don't you introduce yourself and where you're joining from? Just to let you know, Janet is joining from Albany, Georgia.
Okay. So my name is Anne Early, and I am here in Sun City, Arizona, just outside of Phoenix. And the temperature, I don't want to annoy anybody, but the temperature here today is 75 degrees.
Huh.
And then, Robert, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm an ordained minister from 50 some years ago in the Peace Community Church. And well, actually, that wasn't quite that far back, but that's when I first got involved in Francisco stuff. Anyway, I'm in Temple, Texas. The temperature is in the 20s, and you know, what the heck? Enjoy whatever comes, best I can.
Right. And then welcome, Valentina. Just a heads up, you might have a little thing came up on your screen that this is being recorded. We're using it just for our own educational purposes. It's not going to go out to anybody anywhere. So, Valentina, you want to share your name and where you're joining from? And you attended the free class the other day. Is there anything that you want your takeaway from that class that you'd like to share about?
My name is Valentina. I am at Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And my first gift is prophecy. And the takeaway is piece of content energy. I feel healthier and clear-minded. I can see better, I can feel better, and I can just have this knowing of what is right and how a system works, and even can see where people don't see what I see when they make mistakes. And I am less judgmental, but more discerning of what and how people might benefit from program and how to implement the program into society so that we get healthier society. Thank you.
Thank you. So some historical background. This program was created initially by Dr. Francisco Cole. He had already founded the Inner Peace movement, and people were starting to experience healing techniques, and they ran into some problem with laws, because in most states and possibly other countries too, if you are involved in any kind of healing, you need to be affiliated with a church or have a medical license. I have a medical license, but my medical license is limited in a lot of cases to referral from a practitioner and dentist, doctor, DO, etc. And I was interested in, when I heard about that, it could allow me to work with healing and maybe step out of my practice act and into a bigger picture of healing. I really wanted to get involved. And he also set it up, in addition to that protection for the person who just really wanted to practice healing and learn how to be a channel for healing, etc. He also had some other goals in mind. And that the big thing about his teachings is that all religion has come from the feeling nature of man. Each one of us has two natures. We have a thinking nature and a feeling nature. We're going to talk about that in the slides today. But that feeling nature wants to have a belonging feeling. And so that religions, all of them were created, I don't care what religion it is, to give people a chance to explore their feelings, keeping things simple. And it was set up to give people some guidelines actually to stay in their feelings. And it really works with the God within, or whatever word you want to use. For me, I've communicated many times, I can't really use the word God because I keep flipping to this old man in the sky, that the religion I was raised in. But recognizing this God, spirit, universe, some of my associates actually call it Gus for those three words. But it's a way of life, that Christ consciousness within. And as we go along today, I'm going to ask you to just build a mental shelf. Maybe there's some things you didn't understand or you lack clarity on. We'll have a question and answer at the end. So we have some slides. These slides, some of them are from a more universal lecture that's based on Dr. Cole's work, but we felt that they were basic points that we wanted to make, and we are going to cover them fairly rapidly. So Elise, if you'll put up that first slide, which is our sort of big picture, it's really our title slide. We called today's program that gateway to your spiritual reality. Mainly because calling it the Peace Community Orientation Lecture didn't sound very exciting or appealing. But the reality is, it is a gateway to having you have an understanding from, especially from your feeling part. You can go on, Elise, now to that second slide. So, I think that this is an area, Elise, you were going to be talking about the real you. So why don't you go ahead and take that away?
Sure, okay. Well, we're going to talk about the real you. First of all, I just wanted to share that we're sharing what works for us. Can't prove anything. And like we're not saying, believe what we say, but if something doesn't quite jive, instead of like totally just rejecting it, I'd say I suggest putting it on a shelf temporarily, because you might, want to take it off the shelf sometime down the line. This is all about, you trusting your own thoughts and feelings. And so we're just sharing what works for us, and we love to do it. So we're going to talk about the real you. Some of these things are universal truths anyway. I mean, that's a symbol of you and I, and he's kicking up his heels because he's excited about being on planet Earth. Planet Earth is a school where we come to learn, and your energy, you're in a physical body. Your physical body is like your vehicle that you get around in. And basically, you are a soul in a physical body. You're not a physical body with a soul somewhere. I know when I first heard that I had a soul, I thought, well, where is it? I used to look down and go, I don't see it. Anyway, it was some mysterious thing, but it's so much more solidifying to know that I am a soul. I am a being. That is the real me. That's the real you. And we're going to talk about expressions and emotions. So, one of the things that I've learned lately is that my emotions and my feelings are really not quite the same thing. My emotions are more like my communication system, it's my expression. Sometimes my emotions are my trained behavior rather than just coming from my true feelings. So, in order to be on planet Earth, we learn to play the game of life, but we're here to share with each other. And so, communication on planet Earth is really vital. We learn how to communicate with ourselves, with our inner being, and also we learn how to communicate with spiritual helpers, and we learn to communicate better with everyone else. There's so many people on planet Earth. That's why we can learn so much here so quickly. One things that we do have to work with, and it's really good to understand this because it kind of puts all the pieces of the puzzle together. We have two natures. We have an intellectual nature, which is our thinking mind, and that's represented by the top half, the one with the boxes. Those are our tiki-taki boxes. And the bottom half represents our feeling. So we actually live in two worlds, and we want to live in harmony with both. We want to live in harmony with our thoughts and our feelings, and also with the spiritual and the material. We want to have a balance between our feelings and our understanding. So what can happen when we don't have a thought for every feeling and a feeling for every thought? We can have, like this little symbol on the left, it's kind of, he's out of balance. He's in his thought, he's thinking too much. He's got an overdeveloped intellect. Our intellect is actually, it's like our direction. It's not to take over. It's not for doubts, and it's not for analyzing and dissecting things. It's just it gives direction to our feelings. When we don't have direction, we could be running around in circles. So what we want is a balance so that when we have a feeling, we have a thought for it, which means that when we have a feeling to move into action, we organize it in our intellect so that we can move. But sometimes what can happen is if we don't have enough direction, which is on the symbol on the right, which it has a smaller circle with the squares, that means we're going by our feelings too much without any direction. We might have a lot of feeling to do something, but if we don't organize it, we can't really move with direction. So again, we're running around in circles like a chicken without a head. Lots of energy, but not really knowing where to go. So ideally, we want to have a feeling that comes from our true inner beingness, not from our emotions, which are taught, but from what we really feel about ourselves. That's the true essence of who we are. That's it's like when you're really being the real you, when you're totally relaxed and you're calm and at peace and you have a feeling to do something and it feels right. then all you have to do is figure out a way to do it with your intellect, organize it, and then you can move into action. And that's what really makes a balanced soul, or a soul that moves by wisdom. So I'm going to pass this over to Kathleen. She's going to talk about our angels.
Well, not quite yet. We're going to do, to emphasize that a balance of thought and feeling, we're going to do a technique. And that's what Dr. Cole was really famous for. He always felt like people can tell you whatever. Unless you experience it for yourself, it's just theory. So we're going to do a technique. This allows you to have an awareness of how language works, which is all about communication. So I'm going to say a word, and I'm going to ask each of you to give me the meaning of the word. And then we'll go, I'm going to say the word again, and this time I'm going to ask you to get an experience. So the word is mountain. So Robert, what does a mountain, the word mountain, mean to you?
Well, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I had a job with the Forest Service up in Colorado in the mountains, working on trails, climbing around, there. But spiritually, it can mean a challenge, an opportunity to grow, to gain deeper strength in my inner beingness, and to rise above that challenge and not let it get the best of me.
Thank you, Robert. How about for you, Janet? What does the word mountain mean to you?
The first thing that came to mind is it means to climb. I don't know what that, if it's physically or if it's in your mind, but a climb.
And Valentina, how about for you?
What came to me was that's geography. A part of geography is mountain.
And Anne?
What comes to me is that it's a large piece of land that's very hard, that juts up above the ground, and you can see it. Sometimes it looks like it's touching the sky.
Okay, so just take a moment and take a couple deep breaths and relax. I'm going to say the word again, and this time, tune into what experience have you had dealing with the word mountain. And start coming back. Janet, did you have an experience?
The first thing that came to mind was when I was working, like that whole time of being able to work in community, but sometimes you're climbing a mountain.
Okay, and Valentina, how about for you? Did you have an experience? You're muted.
Yes, I closed my eyes and I found myself in the mountain, but it was clear air. It was beautiful. Energy was beautiful and pure in the mountain in my mind. Thanks.
And Robert, what did the experience about the word mountain mean to you?
Well, I had a dream one time. I was back in Tucson where I grew up, and an old college buddy of mine said, "Hey, man, let's go driving in the mountains." He had a new 4-wheel drive, and I went up there, and we got up there in the mountains, and he got lost. We were just 4-wheel driving all over the place, and he looked over at me and says, "You want to drive?" And I remembered that in the dream. That was exactly what he asked me. I said, "You betcha." And I took over the wheel and followed my gut, and we got out.
Thank you. Doris May, we are just talking about the balance of thought and feeling. And I had asked from the word mountain for them to come up with an experience. They already shared about the thought. So I'll come back to you in a second. How about you, Lee? What was your experience with the word mountain?
Oh, well, I saw paperwork. I saw a mountain of paperwork, and I thought I make a mountain out of a molehill. And I just thought, I'd really like to take this mountain of papers and make them smaller like smaller stacks, so that it would be like a easier hill to climb. That's what I got.
And Anne, your experience with mountain.
Well, in the summertime, for 5 months of the summer, I go up to Alaska. I am a tour guide and I drive a bus. And I bring people up the mountain, up the South Klondike Highway, which is one of the top 10 most scenic highways in the world, according to National Geographic. And it is absolutely majestic on a clear day. But there's sometimes I take them up in the fog. I can barely see myself, the road. But the only reason I stay on the road is I've been doing it for so long that the bus could drive itself up the mountain.
Right. And then Doris May, you want to share? Did you get an experience you'd like to share about?
Sure, mountains. I lived in them most of my life. In Colorado, I'd go over Loveland Pass often, in all kinds of weather. I love the mountains. But I think of thin air, but that's okay. Thin air is pure area, and I think of I don't know, purity, ascent, and getting away from everything that's lower. Yeah, it's a good feeling. I love the mountains.
Well,
Purity.
Dory, I'm glad you got the link that I sent you. Is there any way
Yeah,
you can
thank you.
turn on your camera, your video?
Oh dear, I don't know. And most of my problem is no, I don't know how.
Okay, no
But
worries.
you can see us. Is that correct, Dory?
Yes, I can see you and hear you, and that's wonderful.
Okay. So, because it's seeing the slides and that as we go along, although you have such a beautiful face, we all would love to see it. But
You're kind.
that's a
Thank you.
minor thing. Anyway, and so we're going to go on to angels, as very prophetic Elise indicated earlier. And it's really a sort of a summary of what we covered the other night or the other day in the free program. Because our angels, all of us are pure spirit. We have this physical body that we use as an anchor here on planet Earth, but our angels don't have that physical body anymore because they've graduated from planet Earth. Elise, can you put up that slide? Number 6. And one of the things about our angels is that they've mastered what we've come to master. And if you've ever taught anybody anything, you realize, oh, I learned so much more about X subject in teaching that person about that subject. Well, that's where our angels are at. Their contract with us is to be a mentor. They're here to back us in our purpose. They're working sort of as our board of directors, but we're the ones who are in control. They're not living our life for us. They've already done that. But they're helping us to be as successful as whatever we wanted to accomplish was. As we go on, one of the ways that they communicate is through different means of perception. And what's really interesting, and I love this about the programs that Dr. Cole created, and that'll be slide 7, Elise, is that there's 4 ways in the New Testament. It talks about the gifts of the Spirit in 1 Corinthians, I think chapter 13. And that's about the only biblical verse that I can actually quote. But anyway, it talks about the gifts of the Spirit. Some have healing, some have the ability to talk in tongues, some have discernment. Anyway, there's a gift of prophecy, which is all about inner knowing. An individual who has the gift of prophecy just knows things. They don't know how they know, they just know. When they were kids going through school, they knew what was going to be on the test, what would be the correct answers. They're excellent in business and management because they know how people and resources and timing and everything all come together. And if you ask them, well, how did you know that? They can't tell you. They just know. Now, another type of perception, and each of these perceptions is because we chose one of them to be our main way of our angels communicating to us. The vision person, of which I'm a visionary person gets pictures. Once they see something that might have a photographic mind, I always could flip through the textbook and come back right to the page where on the page was the answer. They also can sort of create, they call it like being the architects. They can see that building and then take it back to the steps that have to be done for that building to be created. The visionary person is a great communicator because they paint that picture, and their angels mostly communicate to them with pictures. And a million times I've had my angels give me a picture for my next step in regards to something I wanted to accomplish, or in some way, especially I have a background as a physical therapist, and okay, this person can do X next. I'd get that picture and move forward with that. So a third way a person could choose for this lifetime to be what's called an intuition. And an intuitive person is a person whose angels communicate to them more from thoughts, ideas, words. In a lot of cases, and Anne is an intuitive, they have a conversation with their angels. And it is really a conversation, and with words and that kind of thing. And the intuitive individual is a born leader. My husband and I's daughter is an intuitive type. And when she was a little kid, she was organizing all the kids in the neighborhood. And we thought, wow, why are they letting her boss them around? Well, the reality was she was willing to be the boss. She was willing to be the leader. She liked being the leader, and they were looking for a leader. So the intuitive part of all of us, and we all have all four, don't get me wrong, with just one main way is first. And that's how your angels communicate the most to you. Then last but not least is that feeling gift, which is different than our feeling part, although our feeling gift has a feeling part. The feeling individual is a person who moves through life by how things feel. And the angels communicate to them through a feeling. A lot of cases, it's, you hear people say, well, I had a gut feeling. I know I chose the profession I chose to go to college for through a gut feeling. And I couldn't really explain it. I just knew that what the profession was being discussed with a friend of mine. And I was overhearing it, and I'm going, oh, I'd like to do that. I'm interested in that. I just had this gut feeling that I followed through on. I'm so glad I did it, because it's been a real great way for me to expand. We'll talk more about how do you find out about which is your main way of communicating a little bit later. Now we're going to go into, without slides, just talking about, well, what are the aims of Peace Community Church? So there's several aims, and I sort of alluded to them when I said, why did Dr. Cole create this? But it helps all of us to really rekindle our feelings. We live in a society that's all about, well, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? You rarely hear anybody say, how does that feel to you? What's your feeling about? It helps us understand the spiritual basis of a religion we were raised in as a child, because some of those concepts we picked up work for us, and some of them are dogma that just doesn't really fit anymore. And we can understand, we can start looking at, well, what's in our computer? It helps us experience that God within that I talked about early. or there's a wonderful group community sessions where people meet. It does mostly have a biblical base, at least for the first facet, although there's 3 facets to it. And it helps us understand the 4 churches, which we haven't talked about yet, but we're going to be talking about it in a few minutes, because each of us really have 4 churches within. One of the exciting things about, like I said, Dr. Cole works with and taught us about working with techniques, which helps it become a reality, because then it's no longer a theory, it's within us. And we're going to have Elise share this wonderful video. And as you watch this video, this is really exemplifying what happens when people come together for a common positive goal. And we'll talk how that fits with religion after we view this.
On with discussion about a big festival happening Saturday.
We are. This is Jack, and this is Elizabeth.
Hello, good morning.
And we're going to give Lou that uplifting experience he wants this morning.
Okay, I'm thinking clouds. I'm thinking clouds like you see in the sky right now. I'm thinking light.
Light clouds.
So what I want you to do, everybody, is to put your fingers like that. Put your hands together and your fingers out with your thumbs crossed there, Jack.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, the 2 of you are going to put your fingers underneath his legs at the knee.
Okay.
So kind of half bend down. Don't squat all the way.
Okay.
And Jack, you and I are going to put him underneath his arms and give us a little resistance there. And let's just try and lift him up out of the chair.
Oh, geez.
191.5.
Okay, all right.
I don't believe you.
Don't forget to push down, okay?
Okay.
All right. So let's change it. Was there was a little bit of strain there, Jackie?
There's no way I'm lifting him with my 2 index fingers.
All right, so let's change it up here. Put your hands on top of my hand.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Now left hand.
There we go.
Hold your own weight there. Now we're going to count to 10 real loud and real strong.
Now,
like a fast heartbeat.
Are we building energy here?
Yeah,
or
we're going to build the energy.
This?
Now we're going to practice once to get down there, see if we can get all there at the same time.
So
all
this
right?
is just a practice.
This is a practice. Don't lift, but imagine that you're lifting, but don't lift, okay?
Okay.
So count with me. Here we go.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Whoa, that was pretty good. That was pretty good. Lou, I think it's going to happen.
You went so high.
All right.
Look
Back up here, Jackie.
Look at all the monkeys looking through the window.
Right up he goes. Now this time, one continuous motion. Don't stop when you get down there. Just continue
Keep on
lifting
going.
him up. Take a breath as you go down. Hold it until we get back down in the chair.
Okay, let's do that.
Ready? Right up he goes. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. How was that? Was that uplifting, Lou?
No string.
Nothing there.
You were like 3 feet in the air.
So let's talk, Jackie. What did that feel like? What was that like for you?
I don't know about you, but I'm energized.
Yeah.
Holy cow. My heart's going a million miles an
and we
hour.
went through a strain with him right that time, right?
There was no pressure, no strain, nothing. No, I don't know. Are you? I mean, you guys are strong, but I mean, not enough.
Well done.
Why do you think that works? What do you think?
You know what? I believe in energies and I believe in the power of energy, but I have no idea what just caused that.
What do they do in sports when they huddle together? What do they call that?
Yeah, they're
Teamwork, right?
Yeah, building
There's teamwork. There's focus. There's some enthusiasm.
How high was that? Was I about this high?
Yeah.
You were way up.
I mean, I was looking at the ceiling for crying out loud. So.
And this is the kind of fun demonstrations and interactive things we do at the fair that Dorinda was talking about. So people can really not just think about all this, but really have an experience to show. This is very practical. You can't maybe lift people out of chairs all day long, but you can apply your resources and your thoughts and your feelings and your intuitions and your common sense. And if you put all that together, you make something that outwardly seems difficult, something that's very easy to do. And that's some of the things that we're going to demonstrate.
That is amazing.
Just a piece.
So that particular technique is really about the power of prayer. And they've done research on prayer, actually, and taken people in cardiac care units, and certain groups had their family and friends and everybody praying for them. And another groups had, in addition to that, they had huge numbers of people praying for them, and studied the outcomes later. And down the road, the group that had the additional support had better outcomes as far as, future health with their heart and all that. And I'm sure any of you have had wonderful experiences that have to do with visualization and organization. For me, that particular technique is so special because when I first heard about Dr. Cole's programs, I saw a picture of a person being lifted off a chair, said, want more of a lift out of life. And I ended up going to that program. And I was interested as a physical therapist in that. And it's 50 plus years later, nurses still get the orders from the doctor for the therapist to get the patient in and out of bed. I'm not very tall. Out of bed works because gravity works. I can do that pretty well. But getting people back to bed, not being very tall, I might get them to the edge of the bed, but I can't get them into bed. So I wanted to learn how to levitate my patients. And if I work with teamwork with someone else, because some people are heavy, we need to work with counting. We need to have an organized plan. We have to have an organized vision and direction. The really good news, the pandemic taught us that all of the techniques that we learned how to do in person, we could also do over the internet. And with creativity, we can even learn how to do a variation of that technique over the internet, just to show people how just by yourself you can, because you always have a team with you, that team of angels, and with intent, what you really can accomplish. Now, Elise, I'm going to take over sharing the next slide. We have a very beautiful slide that we're going to be working with for this next part. And this is especially this circle in the middle is Dr. Cole's original work. And so we're going to be talking about the fact that our cycles of life and our 4 churches, which Elise is about to share, are really interrelated. And no matter what culture and where in the world you grew up or are in, these same things pretty much apply. So as we go through it, I'll be referring to where exactly in this looks sort of, I don't know how I would say it. It looks sort of busy, but it really makes sense as we go through it step by step. So Elise, you want to start out talking about the 4 churches? I'll stop for a moment and take that down. And go ahead.
Sure. So I'm going to talk about the first church. Just let me get this source, my screen set up here.
Well, I'll bring it back up then. Do you want to talk about the 4 churches before you go to the first church?
Sure.
So basically, the idea is that we all have 4 churches within. Our first church is our state of consciousness. That second church is our physical body. That's our anchor here on planet Earth. Our third church is our home and the small unit that we might call our close family and friends. And then the 4th church has to do with the society or where we go to fellowship or maybe where we go to work. And in life, everything goes back to that first church. And now Elise is going to talk about, because these cycles are tied to the different churches. So go ahead. She's actually, if you bring your attention to the very circle, right in here is where we start.
Yeah, we're going to start with our state of consciousness. And so our state of consciousness actually is our first church. If we don't have love or a consciousness of God in our first church, we're not going to find it in our second, third, or fourth church. We're not going to find it in church either on Sunday morning. We have to have everything in our first state of consciousness, because you cannot give what you don't have. And everything is within us. It's not something that's without us. If we have trouble in our first church, it's going to show up in your second, third, and fourth church. It's going to show up in different ways. For one thing, in our second church, it could show up as tension, and tension could lead to illness. So it's really important to be conscious of your state of consciousness. Everything affects our state of consciousness. If we don't have God in our state of consciousness, we won't find him on Sunday morning. And if we're taught that God is outside of us, we may stop believing in ourselves and what we truly think and feel. So actually, your state of consciousness or your soul comes first. You're a soul in a physical body, not a physical body with a soul somewhere. You don't have a soul, you are a soul. We need to know how these four churches work together. So the first church, your state of consciousness, talks about being loyal to yourself first. All of the churches are here to help us grow spiritually and to evolve on planet Earth, but we need to be considerate of the growth of others while we're here. We also need to be considerate of ourselves. We need to learn to live and let live and accept ourselves and accept others as they are and respect others as they are and respect people that have their different beliefs. And that way we can be living in a peaceful state of consciousness. So 0 to 7, this is where when 0 to 7, when we first come to planet Earth, we're like little sponges. We pick up a lot of things from our environment. We pick a lot of things up from the people that are around us. We also pick up how to think and how to feel, how to act, how to react, how to be. And oftentimes, it might not be working for us, but, we kind of respond to how we're programmed, kind of like a computer. But if it really goes against our inner being, our inner true self, we may start rebelling. And rebellion's not a bad thing. I mean, we rebel against things if they don't work for us, if they're not true for us. So, sometimes we rebel against the rules and regulations of society, but we need to learn to live together in peace and harmony with people. So we need to learn that rebellion can be healthy, but it can also be unhealthy if we're going to be rebelling in a way that's going against our well-being and the well-being of other people. We have to have a lot of consideration for ourselves. But if our parents or the people that we grew up with didn't have consideration for themselves, we could pick that up as a way of being. And then we have lack of consideration for ourselves. And when we have lack of consideration for ourselves, then we don't have lack of consideration for anyone. So consideration is a really big, important part. But oftentimes when we're growing up, you might hear that you must think the way other people think. You must feel that I say what's right for you because it's right for me. Because it's what they've been taught. It's the only way they know how to get there. And so they believe that's the same for you and I. But sometimes if you don't go to church on Sunday, you're going to be disrespected. And sometimes we're inconsiderate of people that unless they do what we want them to do. If they don't do what we want them to do, we could cut them off. We could back off and cut our feeling of acceptance and love for them. So the important thing is to go back to the feeling of love and inner knowing. The inner knowing that everything is going to be okay. It's going to be okay for you, and it's going to be okay for me. It's going to be okay for everyone. We're just going through growing lessons. So one of the things about being loyal to your first state of consciousness is you cannot love anyone else if you don't love yourself first. You've been taught that it's better to give than receive. To give love, but to give love, you need to be love. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You can only give to others what you have. So it's not selfish to think of yourself first. It's important because your state of consciousness is the only thing that you can really change. No one can change it for you. And it's for your own benefit to really become aware of, how you're feeling and how you're thinking and, where your loyalties lie, so that you can really learn to be in charge of yourself and really be your own leader in life. So we're going to talk about the second church, which is your physical body. And I'm going to pass that over to Kathleen, unless she has anything more she wants to add about the first church.
No, I think you covered it very well, Elise. Thank you. So about age 7, most cultures across the world start to educate their children. So, no matter where you were, or I was in Bali for a retreat, and here's all the little kids all getting ready in the morning, wearing their uniforms, getting on a bus, going off to school. You could tell they were really little, but they were going off to school. Because around that time, especially in school, we start to learn about how do we put symbols, which is reading, writing, arithmetic, and all that, onto our feelings, and learn how to communicate and get along with others and lots of other things. And from 7 to 14, we really work with that. I think you probably heard somewhere along the line that after 6th grade, you really don't learn anything new. You keep relearning the other information in a more in-depth way. That second church is which is our physical body, which is our anchor here on planet Earth, is related to this second church within us, our physical body. And that second church has to do with having this sense that our body, having this vehicle upgraded, maintained, and keeping it in tip-top shape is highly important. It's our temple, as they say in some religions. So how we treat our body, and we know, and maybe even we sometimes fall into doing things that isn't in our body's best interest, like cutting back on sleep so that we can get more done. Or maybe we know what we need to put into our body for fuel, but we have a tendency to visit the ice cream store, whatever's. But the bottom line of it all is learning how that it goes back again to that first church, but it's concepts that we've learned. And think about it, when I was growing up, in the family that I was growing up, one thing that happened starts to get up here into this area of prestige. My parents were very concerned about what would the neighbors think. Maybe yours were also. And they were very concerned about having a certain view from others. And there was a family down the road that had a farm. My family had a summer resort. But the farm, of course, anybody who's been raised around a farm know there's a lot of work. There wasn't our resort too, but my parents constantly held up to myself and my siblings about, they wished that we worked like the Aggie boys. And they also, luckily for my benefit and my siblings, really promoted college and learning. And maybe even learning for the end result, like getting good grades and excelling in that whole world of school. So all of that falls into that prestige of maybe paying more attention to the outer part of me than really getting messages along the line of that I was okay and what, I was doing the best I could, and all the wonderful things you can say to a child who is learning about maybe setting their own school goals and learning how to deal with society and feeling a sense of belonging. Now, as we move along, then that third church, which we referred to earlier, that's where your home is. It's also where your small group is, your family, friends, loved ones. That 14 to 21 years, like the first church deals a lot with our feelings. And that second church deals a lot with our intellect, because our intellect is understanding and interpreting our feelings. Now, 14 to 21 is when we start to develop our identity. That's usually, in my culture, it would be going to middle school and starting high school. I actually have a granddaughter who's in high school right now. I'm amazed to no end. But learning about who am I? What is my place? How do I fit? How do I fit with others? I remember I had a great struggle with that. I really wanted to learn and grow. And so today you would say I'm in the nerd category. Yet I really admired the people who were the social butterflies. And I wanted to be both and trying to bridge that gap and all of that. Luckily, I was pretty much sticking to the rules and regulations my parents set down, so I didn't rebel a lot. But as Elise talked about earlier, actually, rebellion is normal. It really freaks out the parent, because all of a sudden your kids aren't obeying, but that rebellion sort of gives them parameters that they can live their life on. And allowing a certain amount of ability to sort of experience in life without restraint is how we learn and grow. One of the people in this program had a baby. She was now, at the time I'm thinking about it, 18 months old or so. She's sitting on the ground outside by the grass and the dirt, and she picks up dirt. I'm going, no. And her mother stopped me and said, if she wants to eat dirt, it's fine. I'm like, really? Let her learn that it doesn't taste very good. I remember telling my son when he was younger, his sister was born, he was 5, and I said, well, don't pick up the baby, she's heavy. I'm doing dishes in the kitchen, and I hear this little voice saying, she's not heavy, Mom. I never moved so fast. But, they learn, got to learn by experiences. So that 14 to 21, go off to college possibly, or get some kind of training, get into that bigger world. I remember I couldn't wait to go to college and get out of what I considered a small picture of northern Wisconsin. In fact, from the time I was very small, under 7, I kept asking my parents, when are we moving? I wanted a bigger, I would say, ballpark. So 14 to 21 is really pulling those two together and creating our identity. Sometimes we're all feelings and emotions. Sometimes we're all intellect. I think one parent, when I did home health, had a sign in his door, beware, 3 teenagers live here. Because, teenagers, what is it? That old sign says that they know way more than their parents, or at least they think they do. Now, 21 to 28, which is that next cycle, you start to follow this around. That is the cycle of, young adulthood. And it's where maturity comes in. Now, so the fourth church is that environment we talked about, that bigger picture where we fellowship, where we go to work, the structures of our society. But an individual here in their fourth church, they're dealing with maturity. How do I earn a living? How do I provide for myself? How do I establish a family? They're working with all of that. Now, we know people who are 40 who aren't mature. They're still dependent on their parents. They're still not necessarily, quote unquote, finding themselves. And one of the sort of how this all cascades from lack of consideration to prestige, it gets into overwhelm. If your parents, who probably were this age when you were born, were overwhelmed, then when you're their age, you're going to start to feel overwhelmed. unless you start to unravel concepts that don't fit for you, maybe never fit for you. But it's learning again what's in that computer. And that 21 to 28, if you had some traumatic types of experiences back in these first 7 years, there's a lot of statistics about incarcerations in this time, suicides, self-harm, addictions, all those kinds of things might start to come up here because of a mislearning that occurred here. So again, that community group sessions start to really look at all of these areas. And Dr. Cole even created one of my favorite 3-hour seminars is all about consideration. And since that was a word I never learned in my earlier life, it's a course that I actually like to retake every few years because I'm still learning so much about consideration. I'm going to stop sharing there. That basically covers it. One of the things that we have in this organization is a Friday night call. The Peace Community Church organization, international organization, sponsors the second and fourth Friday nights. It's just a half an hour of healing and meditation and sort of regrouping the week. And then there's another nonprofit, a sister organization that sponsors that on other Fridays. So with that being said, I'm turning the slide deck back to you, Elise, if you want to pull up slide 9. Slide 9 is talking all about service that Elise and I and some of the others here have learned how to provide. And it's a way for you to find out more about you and what you set up for yourself this lifetime. You find out what your first, second, third, and fourth gift is. You find out about your angels and how many you have and where they touch you on your body. It also gives you information of how you use your energy. And you learn a self-healing technique and a way of learning and getting two-way communication from your angels. You know, meditation is wonderful. Often people who in meditation get interspersed clarity and information from their guidance, etc. But it's somewhat not as directed as we might like to answer X question that we're dying to know. So the reality is that your guidance you can through the community sessions and other consultations and study from Wayshowers College, you can learn how to have that constant flow of communication from spirit. And of course, the big thing is learning how to be relaxed. I didn't mention it in that second church, but one of the reasons why people have trouble in their physical body is due to stress. In fact, medical science has known that for 50 years. That our stress and lack of being relaxed within ourselves causes us tension, dis-ease, and then disease. So the bottom line of all of that is a one-on-one consultation. It's not required to be part of the community sessions, but it is something that I know that if it had charged me a whole bunch more money than I paid for that service, I'd be willing to pay it now because I know how valuable it's been for me. Elise, you want to share anything about gifts and guidance?
Just that it's one of the most important technique that I've ever learned because it helps me to learn to go within. And I have my own spiritual helpers. I have my own guidance that I can ask. I can check things out with, and it gives a really good snapshot of where I'm at this time with my spiritual energy. Oh, and it helps me understand my lineup of my gifts. I'm prophetic first, which means I have an inner knowing, and it's really fun to understand what different gifts people have because you can understand them better. You can excuse them. Oh, you did that because you're whatever. Because we have good qualities about our gifts when we're out of balance, and we have no, we have out of balance qualities, and we have balanced qualities within the gifts. So it's really important to understand each other's gifts because we can understand that, that's the way people are. Like I had a mother-in-law that was really, really stubborn. And I found out that was part of the intuitive gift when they're out of balance. So I sort of released it. I thought, okay, it's all right. And yeah, so it's really fulfilling. It's fun to understand your lineup of your communication because that's how our spiritual helpers communicate with us. They communicate through our gifts. And this profile helps you set up a direct two-way communication. And once you get established with that, they start working with you through your gifts, through your inner knowing, through your hunches, through your premonitions. They might give you visions, symbols, feelings, whatever, words. And so, yeah, it's invaluable. Yeah, it's the best technique going on the planet, in my opinion.
For me as a parent, it's priceless. I can remember when first of all, I wasn't going to be a mother this lifetime until I found out that I had angels and that I had contracts that I had made before I came here. And 2 contracts that I had were to be a mother to souls coming to planet Earth. So, I had that commitment. I wanted to follow through on my contract. So I did choose to be a mother. And luckily, because I'd already been involved in this program and already worked with my guidance, they could help me so much because we don't have necessarily that extended family. When my parents were in Arkansas and I was here in Michigan or in Florida at the time. But I could work with my guidance and find out what gift my son was when he was an infant, my daughter too. And then there's a way actually to find out what sort of the wisdom that soul is carried with him, we call spiritual thrust. I had that service provided to me as a mom before they were 3. So I understood, and it still plays out to this day. My son's way of dealing with life is today is the tomorrow you thought about yesterday, live in the now. Now his sister, he's a feeler. His sister's way, who was 5 years younger, hers is self-reliance, means independence and freedom. And she's extremely interested in being independent, self-reliant, and free. And he's more of a go with the flow type of guy. And when he went to college, we did, after 1 year, work with providing him with an older vehicle. Well, my daughter graduated from high school 5 years later, and she was already working to buy her own car. And her brother's going, "Why would you buy your car if mom and dad are going to provide you with one?" But, she wanted to be self-reliant, independent, and free. And that had carried through all through her whole childhood, etc. So the fact that you can get that bigger picture of who you are, why you're here, what you're doing here, what fits with your life purpose, and what maybe is just a tangent that you should maybe say, not at this time. Lots of things look good and feel good to me, but if I run it by my guidance, does this fit with my life purpose? Maybe not. But it is really a fun way to move through life. I couldn't work with it any other way. We're going to put up this next slide 10, because this is a step-by-step program. Today's program is all what we call a step 1 program. it starts to be giving you sort of that big picture. And in all of the information that we've covered today is something that's part of Wayshowers College, which is a college without walls. It does have a building and a place, but there's also some people all over the world who, when they wanted to go and have more awareness about their spirituality, have found Wayshores College and have taken training, and there's a whole bunch of community-based opportunities to learn and grow that are based on Wayshores College materials. So here's the stick man going up the steps. So today's step is step 1. And then on Sunday, there is a program that Elise is going to be talking about a little bit more. And it is a workshop that's all about techniques and going deeper. And I'm going to let Elise share more about it. But just be aware that it's a step-by-step thing. And that's what I was looking for, because I was tired of having a book fall off the shelf and I'd read about somebody else's experiences, but I didn't really know how to cohese them all together into something that was practical. So when I got involved and I heard that this was a step-by-step program, I'm like, yay, somebody's already organized a curriculum that I can follow. Elise, you want to share about that workshop on Sunday?
Yeah, I just put the flyer up. It's called the Circle of Love Fellowship. It's 3.5 hours. It's a technique workshop, so you won't be like just listening to us talk through the whole thing. We'll be doing actual hands-on techniques where you can experience for yourself. It's all about getting into your true feelings, a little bit getting out of our heads, where a lot of us may spend a little more time than we need to. So we learn also a technique where you cleanse yourself spiritually and physically. It's a really powerful technique. We use it a lot because we want to work with the highest spiritual energy that we can. So let's see what it says here. Helps you realize that you can keep your energy positive at all times, and you can tune into the highest energy of the universe. You experience this without fear, the reality of the spirit world through a design method. We're going to talk more about your spiritual gifts and have techniques where you can learn to develop them more. And you can it says, feel free and comfortable sharing your true feelings in the gentle healing vibration of Peace Community Church. So it's 3.5 hours this Sunday, February the 23rd at 2 p.m. Eastern. It's $45 US. And if you want to register, just go to pccIworld.org/events. And yeah, it's really great. So we hope to see you there.
So how about if we open up the question and answers now, Elise, and then we'll do that quote last.
And I put all the information in the chat. If you want to, there's 3 little dots at the top if you want to save it to your computer. 3 little dots way at the top. Yeah, it says save chat.
Yeah, of the chat window.
Yeah.
So, questions. How about you, Dory May? Any questions that you have about the information we covered?
No, I think I've.
All right, great. How about you, Janet?
No questions. I'm just looking forward to the next step. But I love the fact that it's a building block. You get some information and then the door is open for more.
How about you, Valentina?
I'm just, the question is, how does it work? I always comes to how does it really work? Because every time I'm sitting in those sessions, regardless of if it is beginning or not, I am feeling healthier right after that. Thanks.
Robert, any questions?
I'm good, thank you.
And Anne?
Well, I had an aha moment during during this hour. I have a brother who is a faith healer. When he was a baby, his mom put snails, worms in his hand, and supposedly the worms died. He's a seventh son, 7 boys in a row. And the tradition in Ireland is if there's 7 boys, the 7th one is a healer. And so people lived on a farm, so the people around, when they had ringworm, they would come to our house for a healing. And when he was just a baby, that's when he started healing. And they would, he would lay his hands on them and they would go away. And sometimes he would say to them, if it doesn't start to heal, come back. And by the 3rd time, it'll heal. And so generally people didn't have to come back because when he laid his hands on them, they were healed. And he carried that on until it was time for him to leave home and go away to work. And I always wondered, how come he could do that? And I realized today he was a channel for spirit, for spiritual healing, and that he had all these angels working with him, and that energy was flowing through him as a channel. And so that was an aha moment for me.
Yep, and he came in with that plan, I'm sure.
Yes, he came in. Well, I had a feeling from what Francisco said before when he talked about somebody in the program that was a healer. And he said, well, you were a healer in another lifetime. So I had that impression that he was a healer in another lifetime. And he was carrying on that because he came in as a healer. But when he got to a certain age, he realized he didn't want to do that anymore. That was not the type of healing he came this lifetime to do. But because he had done it in another lifetime, and my mother saw that in him, she felt that, she had him carry on the tradition. But then he wanted to heal in a different way when he got older.
I think one of the things that really stands out in Dr. Cole's teaching about healing is its healing concepts.
Mm-hmm.
That, we might have a knee pain, but that goes back to that second church, and then it goes back to the first church. No matter anything, it all circles back to that first church. And we actually have a series of courses that deal with the first church in the first cycle, the second church in the second cycle, etc., that go way more in depth than what we covered today. We only covered this really small amount, and having more of an awareness about what we learned and what no longer works. And like in my family, one of the concepts that I've learned to sort of practice jettisoning is if it's not hard, it isn't worth it. So I could, for a long time, used to make things hard so that when I accomplished it, it would be worth it. So luckily I found a different way. Now it's more like, oh yeah, it's okay to have things be easy. I don't have to make things hard. So I know that I have had a really great time, and I want you to just think back. We do have one more slide we're going to share, because if you are attracted to this program, there's a reason. But think back to when you came in today, and what is the takeaway from being here? What stood out? Maybe 1 or 2 things. Whenever you're ready, then Valentina, if you could share first.
Yes, every time I am in the program, I always hear something new. And I always, as Anne said, have a aha moment because, and then it reminds me, because I went through many different schools and many different learnings and listenings to all kinds of programs, and they all resonate with me. And I'm just, I have a feeling that we are awakening into ourselves because of the change of society and our own evolution. We need different language for the same thing that is going all over the world and going on because of, and especially about the gifts. That was something revolutionary for me, cleansing and gifts, because Ellie said that people, we are able to not call people stupid if they don't know it right away, but have to create a picture in mind, because I thought my husband is slow in, like, he's immediately stops listening to me when I'm telling him something, and I guess and I said, what are you doing? Like, I can see his creating picture and vision. Then he loses my words because I already know it. Then I said, oh, that's it. This is how people are different. And I love that because those 4 gifts are really, really very, very helping me very much understand society better. Thank you for letting me share.
Great. How about you, Dory? Anything that was sort of your highlight or stood out for you today?
Yes, I think the emphasis for me was, as long as we're alive, from beginning to end, there's the opportunity for growth and service, of course.
Great. And how about you, Janet?
I think one of the things that stood out the most is the different churches, but in particular, state of consciousness. And so on this journey that I am, just that inner knowing, like I know that I'm expanding my understanding of spirit and angels. And this class today just helped me just be okay with knowing that you're growing and you're moving.
And Anne?
What I loved about this class today is everybody that's here, the fellowship, just being here with spiritual people who it's just so positive and loving. It was beautiful.
And Robert?
Yeah, well, it made me hungry for more personal experience sharing. And that's where I think the Sunday thing will be great for people. And again, I've been through most of those things. And the cycles of life, 21 to 27, that has to do with maturity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just reminded that I turned down the draft, said, you don't want me. I could have been born in China and they'd give me a gun and point it at you. I said, you don't want me. And they said, wow, we never looked at it like that. And they let me go. And then I went back to the Brotherhood of Spiritual Movements that Francisco founded. He says, I'm not a guru. He says, if you want to have a spiritual program woven into your life's work, great. And I got up and after 2 days, I got up and I shared, yeah, I'm going to go back to public schools and help them feel like they belong. And I had, that came out of my gut, my inner knowing, the gift of prophecy. And I had people share with me afterwards, yeah, buddy, you better do that because we got goosebumps when you said you do that.
And Elisa and I'll share what, just our gratitude for you being here. We do have a really special quote to share in a moment as sort of our final words. But for me, I didn't get a chance to really experience the PCC group sessions until after the pandemic started. And because there was enough people, even though we were around the world, to get together on a specific time and place. And I loved it. It was so healing and helped me so much to have a bigger picture that I really highly recommend that you consider those steps and follow through. And I'm so grateful that I could be a part of your first step. Elise?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to share with you guys. It's really nice meeting you, and I hope I see you down the road. And we have one more slide. It's a little meditation. So I'd like everyone to just take a minute, take a deep breath, inhale to the count of 2, and hold to the count of 2 and exhale to the count of 4. And do that again in your own timing. One more time. Inhale. Janet, would you mind reading this meditation for us?
You have to unmute.
Okay, now I have to open it up so I can see it. Okay, there we go. You may not be able to change the entire world, but you can release your love and watch its vibrant colors paint the world around you with kindness and patience, and watch your little part of it change for the better. Mona Lisa Nyman.
Anyone like to share what that may have stimulated, or if you got a feeling for the quote? I loved the way you shared it, the pace that you shared it. Gave me enough time to get the feeling of it, and it's very hopeful. Like, I know that whatever I do will help change things for the better, and whatever we all do as a team change even more things for the better. So it's a great quote.
I'd like to share briefly.
Yeah, Rob.
Janet, I'm very, 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 very touched that you managed to make it to this meeting today. Wherever you go from here, that's your business. But I'm real pleased that you were here today and that you seem well-grounded in all of these different topics. And the thing about kindness and patience, I think that's there's no sweeter, deeper message from any source of spiritual insight that I've ever come across, whether it's Christ or whatever. Be kind, be patient. For myself first, for my own health, and for those around me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Anyone else?
Yeah, I love those 2 words, kindness and patience. And when I'm kind and I'm patient, it just reverberates back to me. So it's like a beautiful, as Robert said, a sweet vibration.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Okay, well, I for one would like to again thank you all for joining us.